Hey, before I start the video, just a quick update for anyone who's watching in my previous videos, and in case I misunderstood before, um, the Kickstarter exclusive stuff wasn't actually exclusive. I actually went back and reviewed the page, and I was wrong on two different points. I just want to make myself correct here for the future videos because I'm not re-recording my videos. So anytime I mention this, I apologize. Those facts later in the video are wrong. But I thought the Malicious expansion was part of the Kickstarter stuff. It was not. It is the Unbroken expansion and the Gatekeeper expansion. They were the stuff that were available on Kickstarter along with the upgrade kit, which has all the 3D components and the additional map. So basically you get 10 killers and 10 survivors. And then a map and the 3D stuff with the Kickstarter stuff. The second correction was I thought that they were stretch goals that you were getting for free. They were not. This is a pre-order. What you were doing is you were ordering these two expansions before they were listed as separate expansions, as well as the upgradable stuff and the core game in one giant box. So there was never any actual exclusives or free stuff for the backers. They got it at a reduced price per the Kickstarter price, although if you find these on sale somewhere outside of their store, that's a different argument altogether. So yeah, it was the Unbroken expansion and the Gatekeeper expansion that were part of the original Kickstarter components of the all-in box that eventually got broke up into two expansions. The Malicious expansion was the third expansion that came out that had the board, so it had less killers and less survivors because they added a board in there. And then the Lightbringer is the fourth expansion that came out that had less killers and less survivors because it added some additional offering cards instead. So yeah, I just want to apologize that as you listen to the rest of these videos, I might have mentioned these in the wrong order. I just assumed when they were on Kickstarter they were going to have, all the free stuff or their bonuses or unlocks or something like that. But yeah, again, they were just pre-order all in one box, and then later they released them in three separate boxes, so you could buy everything separately if you wanted to. All right, let's head into the video then. Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome back to Dead by Daylight, the board game. This is the Malicious expansion. So this is the first of two of the big box expansions that came out at the same time, along with Gatekeeper, which combined together with the upgrade box make the Kickstarter stretch goals. So that's just really cool. If you didn't find this Kickstarter stretch goals, you can still get all the content. Although that being said, I have not directly compared everything, so I don't know if there was any extra additional like bonus perk cards, or like alternate art or anything like that. But as far as I could tell, all the killers, the same characters, and I would imagine all their abilities are probably the same as well. So I think that Kickstarter people got it for free as opposed to having to pay for it, or at least got it a lot cheaper. So yeah, it's pretty cool. This is an expansion, of course. You will need, even though we have 3 new killers, the Dredge, the Artist, and the Knight, along with the Knight's Guard, so it's actually kind of like 7 people. And then we have 4 new survivors. We have a brand new double-sided board, which is really great. And we have a couple new perks. So much like the core set, each character, survivor, or killer will have a perk card for their 2 non-unique perks, not signature perks on their card, but there are also some extra bonus ones as well. So that's what makes this a really good first expansion, I think, to pick up. Because you'll get a couple more characters, couple more killers. We also get 2 new game boards, so that gives you 4 game boards total to play as well as you're going to get a few more perk cards, not as many as you got in the core set, like ones that aren't directly related to one of the playable characters. But yeah, definitely I think a great way to start. Although to note, all 3 killers are listed as being hard, and all the survivors, there's too easy, too hard. Just kind of a decent mix in between there. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and look at the map first, and then we'll jump into the characters. So we got 2 brand new maps, and like I said, if you watched the core video, which hopefully you did, One thing I love about these maps is they are color coded. So it's kind of nice. Like a little color. This side's purple, little purple boxes, and the other side has yellow ones. So you have like yellow, red. So it kind of help do that. But we're going to look at the Forsaken Boneyard. So it's going to have the same stuff at the top. This one actually has less spaces than the core set. The core set, one side had 10, one had 11. This only has 9. So kind of interesting there to see like how less spaces will make up the difference between stuff. But another really cool thing is this is gonna have is a lot more. Looks like a lot more areas that have multiple areas. We have like a blue here that goes to 2. We have a green here that can go any of the 4 directions. We have a red that goes multiple, or it actually goes right here. We can go from 2 different spots with a red. We have a yellow here that can go to 3 different areas, which is really cool. Like here's another yellow that can go up or down. So I think this one's very interesting because it's a little bit smaller area, but it also has a little bit more maneuverability on everything. Everything looks to have a yellow and a red like they should because I've only got to 11. We had some that didn't. But also note the arch here. If I kind of look at each one of these a little bit closer. So if we have the Eerie Balcony, has 2 items in it. The Twisted Tree has 3 items, but it's going to have no greens. So nothing protects you. The Graveyard's going to have 2 and 2. South Library has no items if you get towards the bottom. The Eerie Balcony East has no items as well. North Library is 1 of each. Splutchler has no greens, but it has 2 reds. So that's a very dangerous area to maybe go to, because there could be a hook and another thing. The only problem is like, I wonder what happens with something like that, if it's a double hook, if that makes a difference. Or if it just means you can hook 2 people on that one tile, is all I would imagine. The arch actually has 2 yellows, so you could have the gateway and a generator there, or you might have multiple generators. And then the fountain on the bottom has 2 green. So yeah, very interesting. It's neat that, like, how just having different numbers of spaces, having different things, having like different movement areas can make a huge difference, as well as just having a different placement of items. I believe it can make a huge difference. Plus, also the location of where we start at stuff, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's or all 6 areas are tops and the bottom, so you're never gonna have anyone start in the middle. So that's also kind of an interesting thing there as well. Let's hop over to the other side and see what this one does. So this is the Withered Isles. The Withered Isle. So this has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're back up to 11. So we get a bunch of them. But again, kind of like the other big one, you're going to notice there's not a lot of them that have a ton of different exit points to them, like the same ones. We do have like the top here, you can go a blue left and right. We have a bottom down here where you can actually go a green up or down. But that looks like it. Everything else is like, you have one color option to go a direction. We do have a green here and here, I guess, as well. So from here you can go green one direction, and a little red, I guess, red. So there's a couple here and there, but it's not as much. Plus, always is interesting is I wonder if the breakable walls make a difference. Like up here you have 2 blocked wallways right up at the top, so there's no way to get between this way at all. And this way even it's a little bit harder to get. I mean, you can come like this and go around. Actually, no, you can't. You can't even come this way and go around. So if you're in this top corner, you can come to here, but you're going to have to go all the way down here and go back up or go around. Like, it's going to block some of these areas off until you break through some of them walls. Whereas this one's down here, where I think the other one, they're kind of spread out a bit more. This kind of blocks off this top corner a bit. So that could be very tricky as well. Let's look at our areas quick. We have the thicket at the top, which actually has no red. So that's pretty cool. It's a kind of a safe spot. But again, it's all blocked off as well. So it's like, and it doesn't have a starting point. So if you do go up there, you're kind of going to get yourself maybe a little bit trapped a bit. North Porch has 1 of each. Mansion Parlor has 1 of each. The Pasture has no red as well. So 2 spots without reds. We have a playground with one of each. The porch has no items. The front porch, sorry, south porch, the front porch has 2 reds and 2 blues, so it has no greens to help you, but you might want to go there for a locker. You might want to go there for items or possibly to get rid of a thing, or you have to go unhook something. But yeah, kind of in the central area. The garden plot has one of each. The docks has one of each. And then we have the gazebo with one of each, and the mansion with one of each. So no double yellows, but we do have one spot without any yellow. We have 2 spots without any red. So again, that's very cool, because they could have just been like, every spot has to have a red and have to have a yellow until you have 11 spots, and then they might be like, okay, well, one spot won't have one won't have the other. But the fact is they can double up some of them like that makes that really cool. Or on the other side, we had double yellow. I think that's a really interesting idea. And again, once I've gone through all the expansions, I'm going to probably bring out all 3 game boards. You have all 6 sides, and kind of maybe do a little quick comparison of all of them together. But yes, I think because the board is half the game. How you move around, it makes a big deal. All right, so let's hop into our survivors. All right, so first up we have Michaela Reed. Now this was the first character I bought when I played. Like, I had starting characters. I actually purchased her pack. One, I like the redhead characters. Anytime I play games, I usually make a redheaded character. And then I love healing characters, and she has healing abilities. So that was my type of thing. I'm more like a support character when I play multiplayer games. But yeah, so here's her. It does kind of feel like they upped the models a little bit. Because she has definitely some more extra patterns on her outfit. But I don't want to say that means the first ones are bad quality or anything. I just think part of it might have also been what they were wearing. They weren't wearing as much, I want to say intricate, I don't know if that's the right word. They were wearing more basic clothing, so maybe that was just it. So, alright, we have Michaela Reed, the Young Mystic. I'm not going to go over what all the other stuff is on the cards or how the game is played. You can go back and check out video 1, or the core box set if you want to know any of that stuff. So we're just going to jump into this. Michaela Reed is a young mystic able to alter the trials of supernatural ability. Does anyone see that? Just me? Alright, let's look at what her perks are. So we have the purple one, which is always a signature perk, which is not available anywhere else. The 2 green ones are available as perk cards, so you can then mix and match them with other characters, of course. So the Circle of Healing, a boon that offers a comfort and mystic terror after you successfully cleanse a hex totem. Instead of gaining blood points, a survivor becomes healthy. So this is kind of neat. So it's want her to run around and try and help everybody else by getting rid of the hex totems, which give the killer more extra blood points and stuff so they can spend more turns and do more nasty stuff. And then in the process of that, you can heal. But the thing is, you also want to make sure that when you're doing that, you're using it at a time when it's going to make sense. Like, yeah, getting rid of them is always good, but if you can time it when someone's hurt, it makes much better sense. She has Shadow Step, a boon that conceals the truth. After moving on a path, place the entity on that path. Players cannot move along that path. Oh, okay, so that's fun. So yeah, this is, and I'm guessing players refers to everybody, not just survivors, not just killers. But yeah, so we have the entity token, which came in the core set. But what's kind of neat, because it's usable in later stuff, but I don't think there was, outside of sabotaging the, one of the hooks, you knew it was sabotage. It didn't have any other uses. This is kind of a neat use for that. And why would you want to block another player's thing? Probably not want to block one of the other survivors from coming through, but blocking blocking one of the killers might be worth it. But why didn't it just say block the killer? I think it's kind of neat. It's a cheap way to have a double-edged sword in there, because if you wanted to just block killers, maybe they would make it cost like 3, but costing 1 to block everybody could be very helpful. Then she has Clairvoyance. There's an intrinsic energy in you that sees beyond your vision. At the start of the planning phase, reveal a prop anywhere on the game board. Okay, cool. So that means she can basically keep spending extra blood points um, to start revealing things ahead of time. So maybe your team knows which direction they should be heading. Like, oh, before we lay down our movement cards, okay, over there, you might want to go to the docks, right? Let me flip over the yellow one. It's not a generator; it's the exit. We don't need that. Okay, so guys, let's not go that way. That's pretty cool. That's a neat way to again, it's a nice support ability. Cool. I like that. And yeah, it's always fun to just see how some of these would work well with other different perks and stuff as well. Alright, up next we have Hattie Karu. Or Karu? I hope I'm saying that anywhere near close to correct. So here's her. Sorry these miniatures are a little bit dark. I had to turn my backlight off because it shines on the big sheets too much. She might have some sort of psychic type powers, or she just has a headache, which it could be both in this game. I do like when they have little rips and tears in the jeans. I'm gonna notice that because again, I was kind of talking about detail on their clothing, but also to note that and I might not be remembering 100% this, but I don't recall generally any of the survivor characters in zombie side, which the whole thing is about battling hordes of zombies, having general tears or rips in their clothing. Unless it was something where they would have had an injury that would have ripped off their part of their arm or something like that, or or they were these zombie-like versions of them. They generally just all had really nice and proper clothes. Maybe they had an unshoveled shirt, like it was untucked or something. But yeah, it's very interesting. Alright, she is a brave and determined podcaster. Hattie Kerr is a brave and determined podcaster, the ability to see and feel places of great suffering she calls overlapses. The death, the trauma, the fear, it all leads here, the overlap. So she makes up her own supernatural world to explain her podcasting. Awesome. Overzealous, fighting back against the ravage, motivates and inspires you. When you enter the killer space, gain a blood point. Ooh. So yeah, risking to jump in there so you can do that. And then what can she spend them extra blood points on? Residual manifest. A lifetime of chasing darkness has taught you the best disinfectant is light. When a killer would interact in your space, discard an item to prevent that interaction. That's neat. So this could be very helpful. Most people think, oh, then you can stop them from attacking you, which is an interaction, or hooking someone, which is an interaction. Yeah, obviously, but you can also use it to stop them from stepping on a generator, obviously, because they could jump in, move to a space, attack somebody, right, and then they could, use that action on their turn or whatever to break a generator, and you could instead be like, no, you can't break a generator this turn. Or what if they use the wake ability to hang around for a turn? Yeah, so very cool. Or hiding someone in a locker. Maybe you're keeping them from getting into the locker or something. We have inner focus. You have honed your ability to see through the haze of the ravage. When you would move with your card, instead roll 2 skill check dice and choose one. Move directly to the corresponding starting space on the board. Then you interact as normal. Oh, that's neat. We've had killers that can bounce around the board very quickly, but to be able to have a survivor has the ability to do that as well. Now, granted, you don't have as much of an option for it, because if you roll 4 twice, then you have to go to 4. If you roll a 1 or a 6, or 1 or a 5, right? I guess 6 would be 0. You might, you got the choices, but neither one of them might necessarily be ideal for you. But yeah, it's an interesting option to do. It might even just be the fact that that one map we saw where it was the top rows. If you're stuck in the middle row, or even on the left side of the board, rolling anything to get any one of the other 4 that wasn't the top corner or the bottom corner on the left side, might get you that much farther away from the killer. So yeah, that could be very, very helpful. That's pretty cool. Awesome. Our third survivor, Jonah Vasquez. One of the few guys that's doing some good movement here. He's getting a good jog in there. Maybe a dodge. Got some patterns on the back. Little ID badge. Looks like a young Guy Fieri. He didn't dye his hair yet, maybe. Alright, so those are the two easier characters, so like a healing one, and kind of like a movement around or risk rolling. These guys are a little bit harder, so let's see why they're harder. Mathematical Mastermind. Jonah Vechez is a mathematical mastermind, able to use logic to help his team. After carefully analyzing, we are getting the hell out of here. Ha, that's funny. Alright, so what do we have here? We have Exponential. When it seems like your number is up, you consider ways to recalculate the odds. After you successfully cleanse a hex totem instead of gaining a blood point, a sacrifice survivor moves along any path. There are no longer sacrifice does not count as sabotaging the hook. Oh, cool. So we have one that lets you just, Michaela lets you heal, and instead, he's going to let you, keep your guys from being sacrificed. So it lets you pull someone off from somewhere else on the board, which potentially could be a lot better than just healing, because again, healing would keep them from getting put on there, but this could keep you from having to get across the board so they don't have to stay up for another turn. So that's pretty good, but it also might not happen as often as just getting damaged. And again, there's only going to be so many hex totems on the board. So you kind of, if you're playing with both these characters, you really have to watch who gets to use what first. We have Overcome. You have calculated how much energy you can risk to expend. At the end of your turn, if you are wounded, gain a blood point. Neat. So if you stay wounded, you can keep gaining extra blood points, but you have to worry about getting hooked. I decided to make him harder, a little bit of risk in there. And then corrective action. You quickly analyze problems and correct others' work when they make a mistake. When you or another survivor in your space or connected space rolls a 4, treat it as a greater success instead. So what is nice here is because with this one, you can wait until they roll, and if they get a 4, you could then spend the 2 points to have them re-roll it. You don't have to have them, oh, here, I'm going to spend this ability, then if you roll a 4, you gotta roll it. Now, I do want to note, there is another survivor in one of the other expansions, so they will have their perk card that you can get as well if you want to mix and match your stuff around. That is actually better than this. I don't know if the cost is off the top of my head. It might be the same cost as 2, but it lets you re-roll or treat anything, I think, of 1, 2, or 3 as a great success, so it has a better chance of doing that. Which is better than this as a thing overall. So again, if you're mixing and matching, you're probably always going to take that over corrective action. There'll probably be very few reasons to ever take corrective action. But if you are doing the just playing this thing normally, you can see how his thing kind of works with his other abilities a little bit as well. Because if you're constantly wounded, you're gaining 1 every turn. That means every other turn, you could spend this ability to help everybody else out. Whether it's surviving off of getting dragged to a hook, or doing a search action in a lock, avoiding a locker search, or rolling for a generator or an exit, right? You could keep re-rolling them, help them a lot. You keep building that stuff up. But yeah, or if you're doing the draw a couple into it, you might decide, oh, I didn't get the other one, but maybe this is good enough, or maybe this is worth trading out. So very cool, very cool. Alright, then our last survivor. Ding, ding, ding. We have, and let's see if I can not mess up this name too much, Vittorio Toscano. So there's his. And then he's got all this. Oh, he has an X on his belt. He must be an X-Man. Hasn't found his mutant power yet. At least that's one thing I will say for Dead by Daylight, right? They do have all these IPs in there, but I think for the most part, they've all been horror icons or IPs. I know some of the survivors of obviously we have Resident Evil, and we had Ash from Evil Dead. and we've had some of the Left 4 Dead characters as like alternate costume like switches for some of the characters. But yeah, they haven't like started throwing in like random non-horror stuff. I want to say I thought Laura Croft might be in there. It isn't necessarily horror if she is in there, but it's still adjacent. We have like Walking Dead and stuff. But yeah, they're not throwing in like comic book characters. Like we don't have Spider-Man running around in there. Like it's not, at least as of now, it hasn't become Fortnite. Nothing against Fortnite. Just, that game has its own thing to do it, but just as a horror game, it can stay horror things. Like I'm not even saying like, hey, what if you threw Ghost Rider on there? Yeah, but I still wouldn't want that. Ghost Rider or Blade, even though they're comic book horror characters. Anywho, Victorio Castellano has an endlessly wandered through the fog, attempting to learn the secrets for ages. He's an endless wanderer. So what does he get to do? I got to zoom out just a little bit. Potential energy. So is he Gambit? It's funny. I'm like, oh, he has an X-Men theme. There's potential energy, like kinetic energy, and there's a quick Gambit ability. So maybe that's what Gambit's doing in his off time when he's older. The arcane abilities have adapted to the entity's realm after centuries of wandering, granting you unprecedented control over its many devices. At the start of your turn, move one progress token from a generator in a connected space and add it to a progress generator in your space. Oh, that could be very good. Because then kind of just keep hitting, especially if the generators happen to be next to each other. If they land like 2 or 3 right next to each other, you could just kind of keep hitting them, and he could, wherever he's at, he could sit there. At one generator, he could be in one space, and he could go ahead and add it, and he could be like, oh, I need one more, and just pull one from another one next to it to finish off his generator. So that's pretty cool. We have Fog-wise. In your countless years in the fog, you have seen it all, and when you are focused, you can remember most of it. At the start of your turn, remove a breakable wall or pallet from a connected path, place it on another connected path without any other component. Ooh. The moving of a pallet it could be very helpful because it can slow down the killer. But moving a breakable wall, although the killer can still walk right through them, they don't care. But yeah, that could use it because your guys as a survivors think to look at that one map where that top corner is kind of blocked off. Also, if you had him on the team, he could move one of the blocked walls to somewhere else and free up that area for you. So that could be very interesting. And then Quick Gambit. When you have the killer's attention, you know how to keep it. When you leave the killer's space, the killer moves with you. Ooh, interesting. Kind of pulls away. I can definitely see why this guy is hard. Because he doesn't have any, direct... the generator thing could be very helpful, but again, it's very specific because are the generators next to each other? Do they have progress on them? So you might not always get to use it. And then the other two are kind of situational things, or again, risk with the killer being near you. But again, that could work really well with some of the other survivors as well. I think that's another thing to kind of look at is how well, if you take these 4 characters, how well are they going to work together versus how are they going to work with the core set or future expansions? That's also another thing. Because some people might just pick up one expansion, I want to play as these 4 characters. And I think with the extra healing stuff could be cool. But again, we also have 2 characters that are trying to vie for using hex totems. And there's only so many of them. There's actually only 5 hex totems in the pack. So you only use those abilities to heal or rescue survivor 5 times. So you have to use them very carefully. Very cool. Alright, so let's take a look at our perk cards then. Let's zoom my camera back down here for a minute. So we have the ones that the survivors already have. So we had Clairvoyance, Shadow Step, Corrective Action, Overcome, Residual Manifest, Inner Focus, Fogwise, and Quick Gambit. So those are the 8 that we already have, but then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 new ones. Not as much as the core set, which I think had 12 or 13. But still, the fact is we get some new ones are really cool. We have Renewal. When things seem hopeless, you muster strength to push through. At the end of any survivor turn, you successfully heal another survivor, or another survivor successfully heal you. Take a survivor bonus turn. Cool. So if you do heal, however you heal, whether it's an ability, a perk, or an item card, or whatever, or just an action, you get an extra bonus turn. Self-aware. You know your weaknesses and refuse to hide from them. At the start of your turn, draw 4 survivor perk cards and replace this perk card with one of them. This perk and the unchosen perk cards are discarded. Interesting. Start your turn, draw 4 perk survivor cards and replace. So this would be better if you were doing the mode where you randomly drew cards. If you randomly drew like the 5 cards you gotta choose, because then you might be like, but I guess even good if you pick your original ones, because it also might be like if you're picking your cards or you're randomly drawing them, but you don't know what your team has, or you don't know what the killer has until they actually pick, or even if the killer plays hidden, whoever's playing as the killer doesn't tell you what killer they're playing as until the game starts. So you find out when you pop into the game, oh crap. This is kind of a neat way to always have the potential possibility of getting something different that might help based on the board state. You might not even use it at the first turn. You might use it, 8 turns into the game. You might be like, okay, guys, like we're struggling to heal, or we're struggling to do something. You might draw the healing one. You might draw the one that lets you get an extra movement or move a wall. Like, hey, that could be very helpful. But it is also risky because you don't know what 4 cards you're gonna get. Situational awareness. Does it say? And replace this with one of them. Okay. Situational awareness. You are aware of your surroundings and share the information with others. At the end of your turn, take a survivor bonus turn. Discard this perk from play. You can now access the perk it was covering. Oh, that's kind of cool. So that actually means positioning on your board makes a huge difference. This could be something where, like, if you're playing as, like, Vicario, and you had his potential energy, his signature one, that had to do with the generators. Well, early on, you might not care about, having the generator thing. It's going to take you a while to get some generators boosted up. Or the same idea of, like, you had one that had to deal with something else that happens later in the game, right? And that could be a way to like uncover that later when you more need it. Like even like the breakable wall one, right? Early on, having a bunch of bonus turns might be helpful, but then breakable walls start to become a thing. Discard this, cool. That's kind of neat. Inner healing. You look inward and trust your instincts when you feel lost. At the start of your turn, you become healthy. Discard this perk from play. Now access card. That's cool. I really like this as an idea. Having these ones that are, here's a one-time use ability, and then now you get your other character's perk. These are kind of really fun ones. They can be a little bit overpowered even. Guardian. You risk all the help those need. When the killer enters your space, force the killer to interact with you instead of taking any other action this turn. Discard this perk from play. Cool. And then the last one is kinship. The importance of friendship has given you strength. As an interact with another survivor in your space or connected space. You have them take a survivor bonus turn after this. Discard this perk from play. Now access the perk undercover. Access the perk it was covering. Have them take an extra turn. Cool. So you have one that lets you get an extra turn, one that forces the killer to interact with you, basically protecting somebody else, one that lets someone else get a thing, and then what was the last one? I forgot. Lets you heal straight back up. So those are really cool. This is also where I do wish they had some of the other expansions either added some more, or maybe in the future expansions add some more new perk cards that aren't on the characters. But I also get the problem with that is that every time you make a perk card, it's not on a character. That's one less perk you can put on a character card then. Although they could always do like future ones, like some of the stuff there from the core set or this they could have eventually have been on a future survivor, and kind of work that way. But then it'd be weird to have a duplicate card for that, because I wouldn't be able to print that in the box. But yeah, I like these ones where it's like, do this, discard this to gain your extra ability. That's kind of neat. It would also be kind of cool to have a perk, just a little bit of extra rambling here, sorry. But to have a perk that was like sacrifice a prop token, maybe even a specific color, to do something special. Like, right, what if you had to sacrifice a yellow prop token? Like, you had to sacrifice one of the 2 exit gates or one of the generators to do this big special thing. That'd be interesting. Like, then you can put it on this card or something. Well, it's on this card, you activate this ability. If you had to sacrifice one of the generators, or even worse, one of the 2 exits, that could be very tricky. Or what if, you sacrifice a blue card, or a blue prop, so you don't have a locker, you don't have an item on the board, or maybe you got rid of that crow that could have been helpful. Or even, like, I guess obviously you wouldn't have anything like have you sacrifice a red because you wouldn't be able to sacrifice a hook or something like that. But the killer could have something like that, right? What if the killer had a perk that said sacrifice one of your hooks or one of your hex things, to put on this card to gain an extra permanent ability? That would be a neat little extra effect. Yeah, you in being a perk card, you would never have to use it, obviously. That'd be kind of neat. Or another perk that did something that, like, when you did it, it transferred to somebody else, and it covered up one of their perks, and then until that ability got used, it covered up their thing. So maybe if it was like we have these heal ones, like, hey, you have a thing, it heals you, but now you have to put it on the same slot as somebody else's, so they lose that until they can heal. So if they don't get hurt, they don't have access to their one ability. So it's kind of like, they have to go get hurt to use that to get access to that ability if they really need it. And that'd be kind of an interesting way to, like, force you to take damage. Or the same thing, like any of these other ones, like, instead of just getting rid of it, it puts it on somebody else's card. But then it's going to keep rotating around the table. Be kind of an interesting concept. Alright, let's take a look at our 3 killers. Alright, so we only get 3 killers in this one, but they're all hard difficulty, and they all have interesting new mechanics that they're going to use, or little extra things. So we have the artist to begin with, so let's take a look at her. And again, I think they went pretty crazy on these. She is summoning some sort of, like, weird hook arm. And on her other arm, she has some, like, a vulture, maybe? Which is summoning a weird phantasm plasma bird. Then she summons a bunch of birds and stuff. She has little feathers on her chest. But we have the artist, Carmina Moira. So she is going to have 3 tokens here. So we're going to have double-sided tokens we can add in there. So she has, the artist is a ranged reconnaissance killer, able to launch dire crows across the map to reveal the attacking survivors. So if you remember from the core set, we had area control characters like the Trapper. We had hunter characters like the Hillbilly. We had stealth characters like the Wraith. So it's kind of neat that they kind of give, like, terminology to some of these. I also love that they have, oops, I just about dropped that. I love that they also have information on how to kind of play them. So place your dire crows on a space around important objectives to predict the survivor's movements. Combine this with the extra sacrifice progress from the Grim Embrace to snatch victory. Alright, so what does she specifically do to us? Or do for us, I guess. That's always the thing. It's weird to think about this, right? You gotta keep in mind when you're looking at any of these things as a survivor or a killer, is most games you're like, oh, here's the bad guy. How do I deal with them? Here you also have to look at, how do I play as them? How do I fight, as a survivor? how do I go against the killer? Like, what abilities do I have to look out for? But since you can also play as them, you have to do the same thing from the other mind. Oh, how can I use this to get against a survivor? And then every time I look at a survivor, how can I counteract those abilities? So it's kind of a neat mental exercise for this game. So Birds of Torment. Place a crow or a dire crow from your board on any space. If there's a crow or dire crow in your space, gain 1 blood point. Begin the game with 3 dire crows on your player board. You and survivors can interact with dire crows just like crows. Interesting. So she puts extra crows on the board. At the start of the planet phase, survivors in the space with a dire crow must place their movement cards face up before you or any other survivor. When you remove a crow or a dire crow from play, place it on your board. Okay, cool. So she places the dire crows around the board. For the survivors, gives them extra movement. But if they're on that spot, then you just see what their cards are. So it's kind of like a gamble for them to have to watch if they land on one of those at the end of their turn. Like, they don't use that trigger and they activate a generator or something else. But in fact, you can pick up any of them. You can put them back on the board. She can keep picking them up and she can keep placing them down. It's very, very interesting. I can see why that's going to make her a little bit tricky because you have to kind of decide when it makes sense to pick them up and when it makes sense to put them back down. Because having them on the board, regular crows or dire crows, potentially gives survivors bonuses. Alright, so she says Grim Embrace. Your act of servitude to the entity is not gone unnoticed. After survivor sabotages an occupied hook, place a blood point from the supply on the saboteur's board. When that survivor sacrifices remove all blood points on their board, gain the sacrifice progress for each one removed. Oh, that's crazy. She obviously she has to have 3 points to spend to do this. But after they sabotage her, she's built up enough from removing crows. If there's a crow in your space, yeah, for removing crows every time she keeps placing more of them, she keeps gaining them. But yeah, she could potentially have a very come behind victory because you might get someone that rescued 2 or 3 people. Now, saying she can sacrifice that one person and gain 2 or 3 extra points right off the bat. That's pretty neat. Pain resonance. Overwhelming pain reverberates outwards. Interact with an unoccupied hook. A survivor in a connected space becomes wounded. Oh. So kind of like flinging the hook into the other spot and smacking them with it. That's kind of neat as well. Again, not going to always happen, but very cool. And then, it's this Pimento. After you reveal the true power of the totems hidden within their remains. After survivor successfully cleanses a hex totem, you gain 2 blood points. That is neat. So basically this just sits around as a passive, but every time they do it, they're gonna potentially get one of the other things hitting on them. And then also, again, looking at this as the box set, we have 2 characters that want to sacrifice hex totems all the time. So you could potentially, if they get Revolve 5, you could potentially get up to 10 extra points, which is a lot of extra stuff you can do. That is really neat. Cool. That's our artist. Up next, we have the Dredge. This guy is pretty crazy looking. So here is the Dredge. He is a massive writhing body of possibly blood, ooze, flesh, bunch of skulls on there. There's arms with weapons poking out, a bunch of knives, some hook things from scorpions or something. I have no idea. But yeah, very gross looking. Some of these guys, if I'm all playing the game and I'm oh, the nurse walks up. It's kind of terrifying. Or the hillbilly, oh no, he's going to get me. If this thing walked up behind me while I'm doing a generator, I'd probably piss myself just from seeing it. But, that's gross. The Dredge has no name. The Dredge is a manifestation of the darkness throughout the once vibrant community, able to teleport between lockers and summon overwhelming darkness. Ooh, that already sounds fun. Your direct movement cards let you ignore pallets and paths, but limit the spaces you can enter. Use your power and septic touch to extend your aim beyond the starting spaces. So this guy's going to have a different movement base, which is what's going to make him hard. So let's check out his powers. Reign of Darkness. Choose a survivor in your space or connected space and look at their hand. Choose and discard a movement card from their hand to move them along that path. If they move in your space, you may interact with them. Oh. So interesting. So obviously, though, you can't use this until your turn. So that means survivor has potentially 4 cards in their hand. 4 cards at the beginning of the turn. They play a red. So they have blue, yellow, green left. Unless they get an extra movement or 2 from the crow, they generally will usually have, or an extra bonus turn for some other reason, they generally have 3 other cards. So if you're a connected space, if one of those 3 colors is on there. So this could be very interesting as the survivors, because you have to watch, like, if you are going to end in a space next to him, or it, whichever you want to call it, you want to make sure you didn't play a card that you might still have in your hand, because he doesn't have to pay anything to do this. He can just reach out and grab you. He also has a passive. Instead of regular movement cards, you have a set of 6 direct movement cards which correspond to the starting space icons on the board. When moving with these spaces, you move directly to the corresponding starting space and interact as normal. So this guy doesn't get a walk along paths, which is why him grabbing to the next space is very important. But what he does is he has his movement cards, same backs as all the other movement cards, but he has a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. So he gets to bounce between them spots. So again, like we had that one board, which was just the top row and the bottom row. So he's only going to be able to move between those 6 spaces. But having the ability to jump between any of them on however you want to do it. And again, he has 2 movements, so he actually has a way to potentially get across the board as quickly as possible. You go from one corner to the other just by playing like a 1 and a 5, or however they're listed. So that's pretty interesting. Alright, and then we have his abilities. Darkness Revealed. In your presence, places once thought to be safe or perhaps the most dangerous. When you enter a space with an unoccupied locker, do not reveal a prop. Instead, flip the locker face down to move again along any path before interacting, if you would interact. Ooh. So if you flip over lockers, he can flip them back over, so now someone has to spend another time flipping it back over if they like, to be able to use it. But then it also lets him get off of his 6 spaces. So that's one way he can get around the board a lot quicker. So that's kind of neat. Disillusion. Everything turns to dust. As inescapable as the coming of the night. At the start of the planet phase, place a blood point on the path without any other component. Survivors that move on this path become wounded. Remove that blood point from the board at the end of cleanup. Interesting. So basically, like, you're sabotaging that path. And then, yeah, that's kind of neat. I also like this as an idea. The artist did this as well, where you can use the blood points as tokens for stuff. Like I kind of mentioned, using the perk cards, using the props, kind of using blood points as tokens on the boards or different stuff is kind of neat. And then Septic Touch. The land of the shadows submerses all. Healing only delays the inevitable. Active Survivor reveals a non-objective prop, so non-yellow, in your space, or a connected space. Remove that prop from the game board. Oh, dang. So, yeah, if you really gonna have to not move wherever this guy's at. You do not want to be next to him, or in his space, because, yeah, for one point, he can just keep starting to remove props from the game. He can't get rid of generators or doors, obviously, but he could get rid of your anything else. Now, the interesting part is, now there's no reason, because obviously you can trigger this, so there's no reason for you to ever get rid of a red one. So he's basically just going to get rid of blues and greens, but yeah, and he kind of likes the lockers, so he's probably just him, for the most part, getting rid of greens for the crows, but you could get rid of items as well, or pallets. You might get rid of blockers if you're just like, yeah, I can't use my burst ability for it to move again, but it might be worth not having on the board for them to interact with. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Cool. Alright, then let's take a look at our third and final killer. And I'm going to kind of say plurals, the killers. We have the Knight. Pharaoh's Kovacs. So if I would have thought a killer, all the rest of the guys kind of make sense. Fleshy demon, bird controlling character, nurse, doctor, hillbilly, trapper, stuff like that. And then this guy's a knight. I don't generally think of knights being horror creatures. But again, it could just be like way back in the day, they were said to destroy heretics or whatever, and he's just, hey, he considers all these people heretics. Like his loyalty might have been twisted, or maybe he's just an evil knight to begin with. Some knights were just evil bastards that did whatever they wanted. That's very possible as well. So we do have something. The Knight is a strategic killer, able to send his faithful guards to hunt for survivors and damage objects on the battlefield. Prioritize placing your guards on keep prop spaces to control the board early. Once the game exits are powered, having your guards patrol near the exit gate to make the wait game hard for survivors. So interesting. This is once the exit gates are powered. So I wonder if what they mean is once all the generators are done, and then now you have to go to the exit gate to activate them, because I think that's what they mean. And then basically you have these guys stand guard, so someone has to enter their space to be able to do this. Because otherwise, once you get that space and you have a success, you just escape. So cool. So let's look at his abilities here first, and then we'll look at the miniatures quick. So he has Guardia Campania. Place a guard onto your space or connected space. You may remove an existing guard to place it instead. Each guard has its own effect. So they have 3 different guards. And I'm not sure which one is which off the top of my head. So we have the Carnifex, the Assassin, and the Jailer. That's probably the Assassin. This might be the Jailer. This might be the Carnifex. I'm not sure what Carnifex is. Let's take a look at them first, though, quick. So we have 3 extra miniatures on here. So you have this big guy that's has some faces tied to his stomach. It's all bound up. So this guy might be the Jailer. Makes kind of sense. He's kind of holding people. Then the second one, I'm guessing this might be the Carnifex. A term I've never seen before. He's got like a little club that he's gonna beat people with. I like how they're kind of like peasant-y looking, but with like limited armor. And then the third one is this one clearly looks like the Assassin. He's got the dagger. This guy just looks like a regular assassin. Doesn't even look like he's, like decrepit or possessed or anything. So very interesting. So yeah, I can definitely see why this guy's hard. So if they have a difficulty, I would definitely probably put these guys a little bit harder than maybe the other ones. So the card effect says, at the start of the cleanup, remove the revealed altruism or survival prop in the Carnifex's space and then place the Carnifex space onto it. Then place the Carnifex onto a space connected to its space. At the start of the cleanup, remove an altruism or survival prop, so a blue or green. Then place him onto a space connected. So he's on the board. Every turn he's gonna remove one of them. Dang. The Assassin. When a survivor enters the assassin's space, they must roll a danger dice. On a failure, that survivor becomes wounded. So this is where having him guarding something makes a big difference. But then again, they're guards. So unlike the killer, which has to move every turn, survivor type move. These guys you can drop somewhere and let them sit. And they don't have to do anything else. The jailer, when a survivor performs a skill check in the same space as the jailer, they must use the danger die instead. On a failure, remove the jailer from play and that survivor becomes wounded. Okay, cool. So at least this guy, so like the assassin doesn't do anything unless you enter his space. So basically, the killer's gonna move over, drop him into a space he wants to kind of have guarded, and they're gonna have to roll a die and potentially become wounded before they can do anything in that spot. So again, leaving them by a generator or an exit gate is gonna be very helpful. The jailer, place a guard in space or connected space, you may move him. So he's gonna want to, move him to having one in spots again. You might have to perform a skill check. Skill check can mean a bunch of different stuff. So they must use the danger die instead. And a failure, he's removed from play and they become wounded. So at least there's a way to get him off the board. But it doesn't seem like there's any way to get rid of the Karn effects. It's just once you place him on the first round with your first ability, then he's just every turn going to get rid of a revealed prop. So basically it's going to force you to essentially not run around and reveal blue or green props. Interesting. So I have to see what his abilities are. Now, this is going to be very different because so far, every character's purple signature ability works well with what they do, but they have not been character specific. Like, they could have basically made them bend for anybody. This is the first one it's not going to be that way. You may make face the darkness. You may make an example of one of your victims, forcing their allies to become awed by your power. At the start of your turn, place a guard onto your space, or move to a connected space. You may remove the existing guard to place it instead. She basically lets you move your guards around at the beginning of your turn, versus placing your other thing, or getting a free movement out of it. Nowhere to hide. Your machinations of the weak and craven draw your ire. When you search your locker, the survivor in the locker must roll the danger die instead. Okay, cool. So if you're trying to hunt them down in the lockers. And then, hubris. Show no mercy, especially for those foolish enough to resist. When a survivor enters your space, they must spend a blood point. If they cannot, survivor cannot interact this turn. Awesome. So if they move into the area, you can go ahead and do it. Now, I'm assuming, though, these perks only work for the actual knight himself and not the guards. I do wish there was a way to get rid of the guards. Like, do something else, or have some way where they only last for a turn, or do something. Just because, yeah, it seems like, again, where you can just, like the assassin, you can just leave him in the one space, and it's always going to affect everything. You really, obviously you can move around the board from one generator to another, or if they're going towards exit A versus exit B, you can move them over there. And the jailer potentially could get removed if you move to a space and you roll that die. Otherwise, if you're not doing anything else, you can walk by him without any problem. It's that Karn effects, I think, is the one that seems like the tricky one. But maybe that's just the whole point of it, right? That's just going to make him a difficult person. Because again, now it's going to essentially be like, if we, on the survivor's turn, if I'm going to be like, hey, I'm going to go here and reveal a blue box, which might be an item, one of you guys needs to come pick that up this turn. Because if we don't, beginning of the cleanup step, or at the end of the killer's turn, they're going to do it. Although it has to be in his space. So it's not every single turn is going to automatically move one, but you're going to want to use them sooner than later. And again, he's going to probably focus on getting rid of greens, the greens and the items before the lockers, so you can use your ability down here for the lockers. But yeah, also the fact that you can just get rid of that stuff to the pallets or the crows, so that the knight doesn't have to waste his time doing it, is kind of an interesting thing as well. Awesome. So that's what we have for our 3 killers. Then we're going to look at our perk cards quick at the very end. So like these survivors, we have the ones that follow the 6 that follow the survivor, or the killers. We have Flamenco, Pain Resonance, Disillusion, Septic Touch, Nowhere to Hide, and Hubris. So we have all of those, but we also have 3 new ones. Now we only get 3 new ones for them. But we have Fear-Mongering. Your distressing presence strains and weakens your prey. At the start of the planet phase, choose a survivor in your space or connected space that survivor cannot activate perks during this round. That's pretty cool. Jolt. Your eerie presence charges air that interferes with technology. After the survivor rolls a 1 or 2, treat that roll as a failure instead. You gain a blood point as if they rolled a failure. Oh. It costs you 3, but you'll get 1 point back, obviously, if it worked. But yes, that's pretty interesting there. That could really be helpful for them messing up some of the stuff. Although it does say, like, technology, it's meant to be for, like, the generator. It could work if they're doing it for any role. It doesn't specify what the role has to be for. And then claustrophobia. Your ties to the entity manifest when your prey attempts to get away. After a survivor successfully repairs the generator, place the entity on any path survivors cannot move on that path. And then it goes away at the end of the turn, so it only costs 1. But that can, again, that can very much help protect yourself from, like, hey, they completed that generator, they're going to try and move towards the next one. Nope, now they can't go that way. You could force them a different direction. Could be very cool. It would have been neat, though. I'm surprised we didn't get any like the survivors had, that were, once you put them down, you can spend it to reveal your card below. That would have been kind of neat for some of the killers as well. Just to have some things like that. Obviously, theirs was like movement or that. But again, it could be like, force a person to re-roll a die 1 time, like first scare or something, like then that way they have to put the card back, and they get your ability. Or the next time a survivor would destroy a red hex totem, like nullify that, but then you have to get rid of that card, so you can only use it once. That would have been kind of cool ideas for that too. Again, there's some things they could definitely do in the future, but again, they could also put them on killer things as well, and then they could be used for anybody in general. But that is what we have for the Malicious expansion. So last thing to go over before we end this video is how the box is laid out. I just want to point this out. There's a spot in here for all the things, the cards, spot for the token sheet, and I just have to set the token there, and then the board goes in the middle. You could put the 3 tokens and the extra cards into the core set. There's enough room in there for at least this. I don't know if once every expansion's out, if there'll be enough in there, especially if you sleeve the cards. But you don't really have to sleeve these because they don't get shuffled. They just sit on the board, so if you never sleeve these, I don't think it would be that big of a deal. But if you are going to sleeve them, there's probably enough room in the core box for, I'd probably say, all the expansions up until these 5 core set and the 4 expansions. But then the issue is what to do with all the miniatures. You could always, if you're careful and you're not slamming your boxes around, you could take out the core, the spot where the miniatures are in the core box, and you could just set all the miniatures in there. But the only problem is I would worry is some of like the weapons and stuff, if they get banged around too much, could snap, or an arm might get caught on somebody else. That would be the only concern about it. And then obviously the fact is I don't think you're going to be able to fit both boards, and all the other player sheets aren't going to fit into one thing. But you could definitely empty out like one of these boxes, take out the insert, put all the boards, all of the props in there. Now, again, something like this would be really cool if they did in the future, and who knows if they'll ever do it, is make a big giant box for holding all these. Like a little like even a tray for the miniatures. It wouldn't even have to be something special. It could just be like a long tray thing that went through, just so you could stand them all next to each other, just so that way, they might bump into each other, but they're not going to be tipping over and linking together. And that could be kind of cool. Obviously, you have different size killers, so it might be a little bit more tricky with that, but you can definitely do it. That's what we have for Dead by Daylight Malicious expansion. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Come back, check out the rest. See you guys later. Bye.